Dateline: Da Nang, Republic of South Vietnam, December 25th, 1969. Since first arriving in country, I had looked forward to this day. 10 months of Semper Fidelis in a combat zone were to be rewarded with an afternoon off at Freedom Hill to enjoy the USO-sponsored Bob Hope Show. He would be accompanied by his customary troupe of balladeers and beauties. Nancy Sinatra and Connie Stevens would be highlighted. About 10,000 servicemen, mostly Marines, would be in attendance. With so many grunts in the rear, the Viet Cong would be missing a real opportunity for a sneak attack. But some unwritten protocol seemed to hold Victor Charlie's combativeness in check on this most nostalgic of holy days. Was it possible that 8 decades of French colonialism in Indochina had imbued the commies with an appreciation for the Christian tradition? Or was it that the insurgent VC guerrillas also wanted to see the show and were perhaps interspersed throughout the audience? Strange notions persisted in the Nam. With all my anxious anticipation to see the legendary Bob Hope in person, what possessed me on this day to volunteer for duty and remain back at the unit, manning the telephones and inspecting the mess decks? As one of the more senior company-grade officers in the battalion, I did not have to do this. It would have been more appropriate for one of the newbies to fill in. While tuning Bob Hope in on the Armed Forces radio, I was approached by a lad who had been prompted by his messmates to request that the brothers be permitted to make their rounds of the cantonment and spread some Christmas cheer and song. A reasonable enough request, one would think, but there was a caveat. These brothers were all doing time in the brig for sundry violations of the Uniform Code of Military Justice. They were prisoners under lock and key. Only the old man could let them out, and the old man was a dozen or so miles away watching Bob Hope. What now, Lieutenant? Was this a subversive enlisted man's plot? A brig rat's ruse to effect an escape from confinement? Well, I did not have to consult the Navy regs or the landing party manual to figure this one out. As the command duty officer, I was the old man's direct representative, and this Christmas would not pass without a degree of the mirth and camaraderie commensurate with the season and men of arms. In this instance, the prisoners would have to be men under arms. They would have to be escorted under guard. The brothers were mustered, a sextet as I recall, each nattily decked out in clean camis, and a new blue bandana worked cravat fashion. The bandanas, along with some very welcome health and comfort items, were gifts from an anonymous volunteer group back in the world. The American people seemed to be corny about that sort of thing. Though we were somewhat insulated from the media coverage of the anti-war protests back home, we were very much aware that not every able-bodied boy served, and that not every American was praying for our safe return. The bandanas were evidence that someone besides our moms and dads cared. About the compound, our soul-powered sextet sang, from sea hut to hooch, from command post to chow hall, they spread their musical tidings. With an inner-city beat, they sang of chestnuts on an open fire, and under the watchful eyes of their chasers, they lyrically asked the question, "What child is this?" They were, of course, singing about the Christ child, foretold by the prophet Isaiah to be the Prince of Peace. 12 miles away, Bob Hope and 10,000 Marines were singing White Christmas, and peace seemed very far away as Soviet-manufactured rockets screamed down the Ashal Valley. Dateline: Beirut, Lebanon, December 25th, 1983. They came in peace. Affixed to a tinsel-draped field hospital stretcher amid the rubble of the bombed-out Marine headquarters, the poster paid tribute to 241 American servicemen who lost their lives at the hands of a suicide terrorist truck bomber. Victims of Islamic holy war, these peacekeepers had not anticipated that their G.I. Joe diplomacy would provoke such a hateful response from the very people they had been sent to protect. We were their replacements and their beneficiaries, out of respect for the dignity and courage demonstrated by those who had preceded us in the route. The folks back home sent gifts, tons of cookies and fruitcake, cards and letters by the tens of thousands. The American people seemed to be, well, corny about that sort of thing. Among the numerous items sent, a particular favorite with those of us ashore was the presentation of more than 1,000 shaving kits with tags affixed that read, "To the Marines in Beirut, from the firefighters of Schenectady." Someday, I really must go to New York and say thanks. It took 14 years, and it was far from a hillside in Southeast Asia. There we were, in a room no larger than the average American kitchen, talking with Bob Hope. The grand gentleman had once more stepped into the breach for the sake of the morale of Americans separated by the call of duty from their loved ones. In spite of the mud and potential danger of exposure to hostile fire, he insisted on making the rounds of our positions and speaking with the boys. And boys we were, in comparison to this frolicsome octogenarian. The customary bevy of beautiful belles was not with him. For safety's sake, they remained with the Navy a few thousand yards offshore. To this day, a conspicuous brass inscription on board the amphibious assault ship USS Guam attests to the hospitality and concern shown their guests by the sailors of the United States 6th Fleet. Brooke Shields slept here. I wonder if they held hands and sang White Christmas while they were at it. Having bid Bob Hope farewell, I returned to my bunker to snack on cookies and fruitcake and to sort through a pile of letters, most of which were addressed to any Marine, Beirut, Lebanon. These were mostly from American school children expressing fond holiday wishes and extending sympathy for our lost comrades. Many offered innocent encouragement. One letter from a girl in New Jersey struck my heart and stirred my memory. She spoke of the Christ child, the same child worshipped in song by the brothers a decade and a half earlier in a faraway country that no longer exists. She reminded me from Isaiah 9, 5, and 6 that this child will usher in an age when all of our blood-stained uniforms will be burned, and the government shall be upon his shoulder. He will be called the Prince of Peace. They came in peace? Blessed are the peacemakers, he said, for they shall be called the children of God. Dateline, the United States of America, Christmas, 1993. I see from the newspapers that American servicemen and women, a sign of our times, are once again committed in foreign lands and will spend Christmas separated from their loved ones. These are men and women who, in spite of their not wanting to go perhaps, did the right thing and went anyway. Some of them will not return. The casualty lists and notifications to next of kin bear this out. Because the soldier is trained in the very highest rite of religious practice, his sacrifice makes it possible for most of us to enjoy the blessings of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness without a great deal of concern for the world around us. Thank you, Lord, for the peacemakers. Thank you for the gift of yourself and your sacrifice, that we might know the truth and be free men in the service of the Prince of Peace.